Hi there and welcome to Egypt. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Matthias and I'm an underwater cinematographer and filmmaker based in Zurich, Switzerland. But right now I'm here in beautiful Marsa Alam, Egypt, vacationing basically, and also testing out some new toys and some new equipment for my underwater filming. Oftentimes when I talk to people about filming underwater, one of the first questions that comes up is what gear are you using and what additional equipment are you using to get the footage that you're getting underwater. So I thought I'll make a short video today on what gear I'm taking with me when I'm going on a trip and I'm planning on doing some underwater shooting. So let's get right into that, but before we do so, as you can see, it is a little windy today out here. So we'll be switching into my room and I'll show you all the gear that I've taken on this trip that is connected to filming underwater. Let's go! Welcome to my hotel room where I've got all my equipment stored for now and where I'm happy to share with you what I've taken with me on this trip when it comes to filming underwater. Now the most important thing obviously is the camera, and I'm using the GH5S and I've got a second body which is the GH5 that I'm taking with me whenever I go somewhere where I'll be diving and where I expect to be shooting underwater as well. Now the GH5 is in my NAUTICAM housing, this one here, the according housing for the GH5, and because the GH5S is built exactly the same as the GH5, they both fit into this housing, which is very convenient. So I have this one with me, including the nice and big dome port. Get this off so you can see it a little better there. So this is my base setup that I'm using for filming underwater. Now right now the GH5 is in here because I'm actually filming this on the GH5S. But normally I would put the GH5S in here simply because of its better low light performance, and underwater that can be quite an issue. Now the lens that I'm using for most of my shootings underwater, especially when it comes to shooting reef scenes and stuff like that, is the 12 to 60, the Leica 12 to 60 millimeter 2.8 to 4, and because that lens is not the best in low light performance, I prefer to use the GH5S, so to level it out a little bit and make it acceptable when shooting with it underwater. The second lens that I'm carrying with me, or that I'm using underwater, is the 100mm Canon f1.8. This is a macro lens and I'm using this when I'm shooting obviously smaller stuff, macro stuff, mostly on night dives, but also sometimes during the day if I want to shoot some smaller critters, then this is my lens that I'm using for that. Now obviously that doesn't fit into the dome port, so for that reason I carry as well a macro port with me. It's two parts for that one, so it fits on the housing, and it's also got a little knob there so you can control the focus manually through the port, which is very important, I find. Moving on, we obviously need some lights for filming underwater to be able to light up our scenes in the way that we want to. So you do need to carry with you some sort of a light source. Now what I'm using right now to lighten up my images and my footage underwater is the V6K Pro from the company Scuba Lamp. Now these ones are not mine, they were given to me to test them out by my friends at Fentig. Fentig is the best store in Switzerland when it comes to finding gear for underwater photography and videography. So they've given me a set of these, actually two, because you know, you always need two to be able to light up your scenes evenly. So they've given me these ones to test out because they think that they are really, really high quality. And I have to say I'm very impressed with what I've seen coming out of these lamps so far. But we'll talk a little bit more about these lamps in a video that will be coming up in the next few weeks. But for now, this is what I'm using and I'm very happy with them so far. Obviously, we also need some arms to be able to attach the lights to our underwater housing. So these are the arms that I'm using for that. And you obviously also need some clamps to be able to attach the arms to the housing and the lamps, the underwater lights, to the arms itself. I also carry a small action camera with me. In this case here, it is the Paralens Dive Camera Plus. If you haven't seen my review on these cameras, I'll link it up here somewhere. Feel free to go and check that out if you want to. Now these cameras are really cool simply because they're very easy to use. And what I use them for, I put them on top of my big rig, especially when I'm shooting macro. So I have them on there just in case something big crosses my path when I'm diving and I've got the macro lens on it. I won't be able to capture whatever is there, but having this little camera on top of my rig, I can then just switch that on very easily and I can still get some footage. It's not going to be the same quality that comes out of my GH5S, but it's better than nothing. So this way I'm covering both wide angle and macro. And it's very easy to carry this small camera with you and just place it on top of your rig before you go diving. Just have it there in case something larger comes along as you're filming the small stuff. I also carry a small tripod with me, a travel tripod that I'm using on land as well as underwater. I can't show you this one right now because the GH5S is sitting on that right now as we're speaking, but I do have one when I'm filming with my macro lens. I found that most of the macro work is really difficult underwater to be keeping your camera very steady. So having a tripod that you can place your camera on, whether that's just a regular tripod or a specifically designed tripod for underwater, doesn't really make that much of a difference, but you do want to have some sort of a fixture, some sort of a tripod that you can take with you, that you can place your camera on and then film the small stuff and get some really steady and nice shots. Keep in mind though, be careful where you put your tripod. Make sure that you only put it on sand and only where there is no living creatures underneath. Don't place your tripod on the live coral or anywhere where you could damage the environment. So just keep that in mind and be very careful where you place your tripod and your camera. When it comes to spare gear and accessories that I'm taking with me, I've always got two little kits that I'm carrying with me. This is my camera kit for the NAUTICAM housing and the GH5. So I've got some tools in here that are very universally useful. I've got spare parts in there. There is spare O-rings, there is some silicone grease to grease those O-rings, make sure that nothing's leaking. What else? There's my vacuum pump. I've started using this on the NAUTICAM housing as I bought it, and I wouldn't go without that anymore. Now what it basically does, it creates a vacuum inside of your camera housing, and there's a system that will detect if that pressure changes inside your housing and will warn you that there is a slight leak in your system. This is incredibly useful and incredibly handy when you're on the run, you need to get ready quickly to get into the water, and just being able to look at the back of your camera and check the light, make sure that it is green, that the system is sealed, there is no pressure loss in the system. Just gives you really a peace of mind when getting into the water, knowing that the camera system is sealed and no water will leak into your system. If during the dive water comes into your system, even if it's just a little droplet, there is a sensor inside that will detect that, and it will audibly as well as visually inform you that you've got some water, even if it's just the tiniest amount, in your camera or in your housing, and therefore you can abort your dive and save your camera before anything worse happens to it. And then in the second little spare kit that I've got here, I've basically got stuff that I need for fixing my scuba gear. So this is not really related to my underwater housing, but this is a little kit that I carry with me all the time. I've got a little Swiss Army knife in here. I've got toolkit in here as well. I've got super glue because it works for everything. I've got cable ties in here. Everything that might be handy in case something breaks and you need to fix it right away and quickly there on the spot. On this trip, for the very first time, I've also brought some blue filters with me. They work in combination with red filters, like I've got them here, a red and a magenta filter. These ones are placed on your camera lens, and then the blue filter is placed on your underwater torch. Now, we'll cover the way these filters work in a different video, in a separate video, but I've used them on this trip for the very first time, and I have to say I'm very impressed with the colors that they produce and the quality of the footage that you can get out of using these things. And last but not least, on this trip specifically, again, what I've brought with me is an underwater drone. This is the Nemo underwater drone by the company Aqua Robot. Man, they've sent me this drone just before I left for my trip here to Egypt, and I'm testing it out here in the nice and colorful Red Sea. This is not something that I would take with me normally because it's quite bulky, quite big and heavy, but I've taken it with me on this trip, and I've tested it already a few days ago here on the house reef, and I'm quite surprised, pleasantly surprised by the results of it. There's going to be more testing coming in the next couple of days as well, and as soon as I've made a specific video about this, you will find this on my channel as well, and at that time I will obviously also link it up here somewhere so you can go and watch that too if you're interested in seeing how this underwater drone performs footage wise and handling wise. And that's basically it. That's all my gear that I'm taking with me when I go filming somewhere underwater. Now, of course, this is only specific to filming underwater. There is a lot more gear that I'm taking with me on trips that I go to, on this trip here as well, but it is not specifically connected to filming underwater. Obviously, I bring ND filters with me. Obviously, I've got a drone with me here. Obviously, I do have a microphone with me here. Obviously, I'm bringing all these things with me whenever I'm traveling, but they're not essential. They're not on a need-to-have basis when it comes to filming underwater. Now, the things that I showed you in this video, I will put some links down in the description here. So if you guys are interested in checking out any of the gear that I'm using to get my shots underwater, feel free to check them out. All of these links that I place down in the description, they are affiliate links, just to be clear on that, and for full disclosure, basically that means that if you do click on one of these links and you do decide to purchase one or the other of the equipment pieces that we talked about in this video, I will get a small kickback, which obviously is going to go straight back into this channel in producing more content for you guys. So I would appreciate that a lot. And that was already, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that this video was interesting for you. Please let me know if there is anything specific that you would like to know about my gear that I'm using for filming underwater. Please don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, if you got something out of it, and also consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't yet, so you don't miss out on any content that will be uploaded here on this channel in the future. Thanks again for watching. The ocean is calling, and I will see you next Sunday.